So this is the second podcast with the Roger, and now the subject matter with the Roger is how the investment is very important for the startup, how it will be the process. So let's dig into the more details with the Roger. Roger, what inspired your initial interest in investing, and how did you take your first steps as an investor?
Well, Sadaf, I think it's important to note that when you accumulate earnings using your talent and time, there's difficulty scaling.
Hmm.
Even if you are a very, very well-trained, successful CEO, when you're performing your tasks as CEO, you are in effect trading your abilities and your time in exchange for money. With investing, I discovered I was able to provide other CEOs with the benefit of my experience without trading my time. Therefore, the way you accumulate wealth is fundamentally different. So that is what I discovered, that investing would be the way to leverage my experience with a greater yield.
Perfect. Can you recall an unexpected situation where you stumbled upon a promising investing opportunity?
I think that's a very good question. And the answer is yes. I was an original member of the team at Nextel International, and we introduced the very first books available on mobile phones, where you could listen to the entire book on your mobile phone while driving. Had never been done before. And I did not understand the power of publishing, the power of intellectual property. As I listened to these books, some of them were read by their authors, others were read by guest speakers. And that is what I understood, this economic model, whereby you create and generate ideas, publish those ideas, and that intellectual property continues to throw off cash for a very long time, long after you've exerted the energy of creating the work. That was the first time. That was the first time, because I had understood how to make a cell phone. I understood how to bill for wireless services, but that's really a service. And I didn't know any other economic model. So I think it's fair to say that was a quirky and unexpected situation, that my skills, knowledge, understanding, connections into the media part of technology, media, telecom came from books spoken over mobile phones.
Third question is that as someone who has already involved with both startups and established multinationals, what difference do you encounter with assessing investment opportunities in those categories?
That's a very good question. There's a prepared answer and there's a real world answer. The real world answer is that a startup is really the quest to prove that either what you are building can solve a problem, exploit an opportunity, or prove a functionality. That's the holy grail. That's the holy trinity. You're either solving a problem, exploiting a window of opportunity, or you're proving that something works at all. So that is the challenge of a startup. When you're investing in a multinational, you are also investing in a complex set of geopolitical issues. You already know that you can solve a problem. You already know that you can exploit an opportunity for profit, or you already know that the magic box works, the product works. What you don't know is, will the geopolitical spectrum change in the course of our pursuing our business? Will this population grow? Will this youth population adopt the product? It worked in France. Will it work in Australia? You're dealing with issues that are sociological, social scientific by their very nature. And that's the difference. When I invest in things that are related to international, multinational business, I'm also investing in the social scientific reality of whether psychologically, politically, economically, does it work again in Australia like it works in France? When I'm investing in a startup, I only want to know one thing. So what problem are you solving? And is that really a problem? What opportunity are you exploiting? Is it really an opportunity? Is it really something people didn't know they need? And if you provide it to them, suddenly they can't live without it? Or do you just want to make something that's interesting and fascinating? Do you just want to make it work? If we make it work, is there incredible economic opportunity ahead? That is the difference between a startup and a multinational investment. Different bets. I think you would agree.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. And this is the main thing. So it is where we are also helping with the starters and investors to do the market analysis. So market analysis is very important. You can say, okay, if there is a problem, there should be the solution. So we need to cater the solution first, so we can solve the problem in the society, either as a startup, either as a multinational as well. So the market research is very important when you're into the.
That's correct. What I run away from when I invest time, money, resources in a startup, I almost always run away from an opportunity where the entrepreneur is simply making something for their own joy. And they can't explain the problem, the opportunity, or the product. They're simply saying, this is my lifestyle, and I think other people will enjoy that lifestyle as well. Yes, that has worked. Generally, it does not work. So you have to look for some level of universality in what either the multinational or the startup is addressing. It has to span a large swath of people as opposed to the whims of the individual.
So my fourth question with Roger is that you have led 3 high-profile VC-backed startups that created over 50 billion in value. What strategies did you employ to drive such remarkable success in the startup world?
I think it was very much related to my last statement. In every single circumstance, solved a big problem, or we exploited an opportunity that people couldn't quite see, or we just made something work that you never thought would ever exist. So let's kind of go through those things. It's interesting with Nextel, the big problem was that with a normal walkie-talkie radio, I could push a button and talk to everyone in my group. But I couldn't do that across countries. I couldn't transcend time and space. And Nextel allowed me to press a button and talk to 8 people in 4 different countries, 5 different states. It was extraordinary that I could press a button and people in 8 different places far, far away would hear or see the same thing at the same time. It was something. It was magical. That how can I press a button in Israel and people hear me in South Africa? So it took that common function, one-to-many communication, and then transcended time and space. With T-Mobile, let's talk about that. It was very interesting. When we first launched text messaging in America, there were people from a different generation who could never imagine someone tapping in a message on their phone instead of simply calling someone. And I remember specific circumstances where there was disbelief. There were people who could not believe that someone would rather send a message than talk to you on the phone. But we proved demographically, people born after 1975, would much prefer to send a message or an image or a favicon, an emoji, a graphic. They'd much rather do that than simply talk on a phone in complete sentences like they were in a play or a movie. And guess what? The people born after 1975 turned out to be the biggest opportunity of them all. Thus, the emergence of text messaging in all of its formats. So you can thank that incredible team I worked with people sending emojis from Belgium to Bangalore, and people laughing at the same time at a sticker or a graphic instead of trying to translate it into language. Can we make it work? Completely different thing. And in that, I was involved in a startup that was related to micropayments for things that you could not see, touch, smell, simply paying for the right to do something, or you're paying for a digital right. And no one ever thought that people would pay for something that they couldn't touch, see, or experience. And now people do it every day, all day. They use credits in order to do things, and those credits are not a rupee. It's not a yuan. It's not a euro. It's not a dollar. It's a figment of your imagination. It's virtual currency. It's a credit, and one credit equals 8 wampum, and 8 wampum equals 16 dirham. And these things mean nothing. They're abstractions of the imagination. And so micropayments was a thing where we said, can we make it work? Will it work? And it did work. So all of these things go back to my original statement. Solve a big, big, big problem. Identify a great opportunity. 60-year-olds don't use it, but 16-year-olds do. 16-year-olds hate it, but 30-year-olds love it. Or just make something work that, although it's born in science and engineering, when it does happen, it feels magical. There's something magical to it.
In addition to your professional pursuits, you are actively involved in volunteering, including the International Mountain Bicycling Bicycling Association. And can you share your experience in that? How you are in that area?
It's a fair question. So, I have an uncle very dear to me. He is an academic, a relatively well-known former college president. And in order to keep himself sharp, although he has all of these credentials related to formal education, he decided every year he was going to select a subject. Without walking into a classroom, he was going to become a master at that subject. Extraordinary man, extraordinary intellect. His name is Franklin Jennifer, and he is effectively the man who transformed University of Texas at Dallas from a sleepy commuter school into a powerhouse engineering and science university in Texas. So he selected a problem every year, and he said, this is something, you may want to think about. So that year, he was learning about locks. I walked into the kitchen. I said, Uncle Frank, what are you doing? He had a lock disassembled with all of its components. He said, well, this year I'm learning about locks, how locks work. Wow. So in my imitation of his habit, I selected mountain biking area, and I bought a mountain bike. I understood how it worked. I joined a mountain biking community. I joined the Mountain Biking Association in Colorado. I went mountain biking. It was just incredible. I just learned everything I could about it in a year. It's an incredible type of recreation.
Absolutely agree.
All people of all ages can enjoy. There are incredible levels. There are gentle levels, and there are daring levels. And so I enjoyed that. And it's brought me, a new dimension to my life, that I'm now officially a mountain biker, a very poor one. I wouldn't say I'm the most authentic. However, I do understand it. And in this area of, giving back, I'd say the most important area for me, in all seriousness, has been the empowerment of women, because my mother went to an American women's college, which is very unique to America, that we had these women's colleges. They were dedicated to safe environments where women could explore science, art, music, mathematics on their own terms and in their own ways. I think that had a pretty big impact. I've had many, many family members who've gone to these American women's colleges. And I think that is something that I will support for the rest of my life. This is not gender separation. This is not voluntary segregation. These places were created out of necessity. That women were not allowed to go to university, not allowed to go to college. And had it not been the phenomenon of women's colleges in the United States, you would not have women's suffrage. You would not have women's voting. You would not have arguments about social and salary parity. So women's colleges, near and dear to me, and anything I can do to promote women's self-empowerment through education, I will always do that. And that's a pretty big deal to me.
Perfect. So this is your vision, I think so. This is your personal vision that you need to empower the women in education, right?
Yes, it's very, very personal. There hasn't been a job, there hasn't been a activity, organization I've been involved with where I have not taken great strides to pull in women from women's colleges or women's schools or women's internship programs. And effectively, I force the men to deal with it. Where I have such circumstances, I go, well, she's going to be at the table, and if she's not going to be at the table, I'm not going to be at the table. And there are many options you have. So you can get this done with someone else, or you can get this done with me and know that I will have these young women who are trying to make their way in the world by my side. Pretty aggressive about that. Very, very stereotypically American about that.
So my next question is that, Roger, what roles does the startup's products or services play in your decision to invest? What kind of products or ideas are most appealing to you?
This is a very, very good question. There are investors who invest in momentum. When something is happening, they just put their money there. They're pure financial engineers, and they just see a return. They really don't want to know much about the intrinsic nature of the product or service. They simply invest as a mathematical exercise. Because my career began conceptualizing new and amazing products, I tend to want to know a great deal about the nature of the product, the way the service works, who the service serves best. I'm very interested in that kind of thing. There's an interesting multinational, Yum Brands. Yum Brands was once run in Asia by a former colleague of mine, Muktesh Mickey Pant. He's an Indian national who was brought to America, worked side by side with me, and then he went to Yum Brands, the owner of Kentucky Fried Chicken, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell. I was extraordinarily interested in making a decision of whether to invest in that multinational based on the actual product. I'm like, wow, we're really going to eat pizza in China? People really enjoy a fried chicken in South Africa. Even when it came to food, I'm intensely interested in the product itself, because all of these things look good mathematically, Sadaf. You have a great accounting background. You have a great zen for numbers. The way you see into a business model and understand the efficacy and validity of a business model is amazing, which is why I enjoy working with Oak. Okay? But product gets to the heart of it. I can show you on a board, you know what? Here's how many young people exist in the world. So each of those young people will eat this number of tacos in a month. What if the people in Saudi Arabia just think that taco is disgusting? It doesn't taste good. Or it falls apart. Why would I want to eat something that falls apart and crumbles all over the place? So maybe that works in Cincinnati, Ohio, and maybe that's going to be a big, giant flop in Egypt. So it's the product, not just technology. In all products, one needs to assess the product market fit. One needs to assess the way the service works, and is that service applicable or relevant? And that's how you see into a business. And that's why so many businesses fail, in my opinion, startups and multinational, when they have what I call cultural chauvinism, which is, well, here in Italy, we love having a 2-hour lunch served in a specific way over a specific time. No one in Italy eats as fast as they can walking down the street for lunch. Only Americans do that. Only Americans say, give me the food as fast as you can. Then they take the food, then they walk as fast as they can down the street. And they go, now that was good value.
That's why we have the subway. The highest number of branches outlets are in the subway or of subway in America just because of this. Because the mentality, the market scenario is that the consumer wants the food as soon as possible. So that's why the fast food concept is coming from the America as well. But again, if you are going for Saudi Arabia, Lebanese, and every the other countries like Turkey, they have the barbecue, and barbecue at least take 1 to 2 hours, not more. Means maybe it will be take much more time when we are doing the mutton or beef barbecue. So again, come to the point. So market adaptability is very important.
That's
Again,
correct.
country to country, culture to culture, even religion to religion as well.
That is
So
correct.
sometimes so we need to think about the market adaptability in terms of the regions, in terms of the culture, in terms of the consumer behavior as well. So again, I come to the point, we need to do the market research of the
Right.
problem. So
We,
again, yeah,
that's very well said. Very well said. The numbers can work theoretically.
yes,
The numbers
absolutely.
can work theoretically, especially when it comes to a service. I had a great experience with the person I mentioned, Muktesh Pant, who I think the world of. He's a very, very good executive. And I visited him in India. The emphasis on services in India are very unique to Southeast Asia. The typical affluent, well-to-do business traveler in Europe, America, or China would not want human beings omnipresent, present all the time, 24 hours a day. It was a unique cultural phenomenon that the biggest Western hotel names in India have to accommodate the market by having a person who sits in your presidential suite in a small closet waiting for your desire to be articulated so they can meet your desire. So not only do you have 3 people following you everywhere you go, servicing all of your needs, you have a person who sits in an antechamber, a small room off of your room in your hotel room. That is a uniquely geographic and cultural desire to have a personal servant at your behest 24 hours a day while you're in the hotel. And that changes everything in the numbers of the investment. So a Marriott has to think differently when they're doing business in that specific environment where personal service is expected and desired as a way to communicate your class, your caste, your economic capability. And those very same behaviors might be embarrassing in Brussels, where the wealthiest people in the world walk down the street with their own briefcase in their hand and their own notebook under their arm, and would be offended by having 7 people following them, carrying every little item needed to conduct their business. But these are examples. Product and service is everything and must be matched to the market in order for the business to become as successful as a Marriott or as ubiquitous as Zoom, startup or large cap. That's the magic, is the actual product and service is the beating heart of that business.
The good quality services and the product as well. I need to share the case study of Japanese market is that Japanese don't do the marketing because they believe when the product is itself is the best quality, consumer will come to you directly one day and they will have the loyalty with the product or these other the services. So if we see the America and the Japan, American companies are putting so much efforts in the marketing and they have the high marketing ROI cost as compared to the Japanese companies. You never see any Japanese company marketing, never cars, automobiles, even the machines. So they are more focused to the quality of the product and the services rather than to do the marketing because they know consumer will come to the good quality of the product and good quality of the services. So This is the whole, you can say, mechanism in the American startups, either the companies and in the Japanese companies. So again, come to the point that we need to provide the good quality and services and need to capture the problem of the society
That's
to
right.
solve
And
the problem.
there are many opportunities to invest it off. One of the reasons why I don't invest in luxury goods is that the product and service,
Hmm.
if it's a large cap luxury company, they make a lot of money from licensing. The brand itself is a cognitive shortcut, is a symbol,
Hmm.
and then you license that brand and you're disassociated from the product. With a small startup or what's called an early stage family run luxury company, the emphasis is on the product. It's a beautiful piece of luggage that has extraordinary functionality. Once it gets to the scale of a multinational, it's mostly licensing. And so many kinds of investors in the world, I tend to overinvest in product or services and believe that a superior product or service will win the day with a specific group of people or a specific country or culture.
So if you are an animated character, this is a very interesting question I'm asking to you, Roger. So if
Mm.
you are an animated character, what three tools or superpowers would you have in your investor toolbox to navigate the world of investment?
First superpower
Yeah.
would be the business risk. Is it great technology? Is this a charismatic leader? But the business itself just doesn't make sense.
So the team is very important.
No, well, first is the business model. Does the
Business
business
model.
model? The second superpower would be the ability to peer into the technological risk. Yes, that's an interesting concept,
Hmm.
but the technology is unstable. It's not consistently working. It's not proven. The third superpower would be the ability to peer into the character of the entrepreneur. There are all kinds of people in the world, men, women, Southeast Asia, Nordic countries. It doesn't matter. The character of the entrepreneur is important to me. For some people, this means little. For me, it means everything, that the person is not pursuing profit at the expense of actual human beings in a knowing, acknowledged way. Yes, I'm going to sell 10,000 of these. I know 3,000 people will die, and I'm going to sell it to them anyway. I'm simply not that kind of investor. So to recap, the three superpowers I wish I had was the ability to divine the business model, to understand the technology risk, to understand the character of the entrepreneur before we take the first step together.
Hmm. I
It'd
hope
be
so
almost
all
be like the
these.
ability to see the future. If you could figure those three things out, you'd be very lucky if you could figure those three things out before you invested €1, $1, 1 yuan.
So I believe that all these characteristics you also want to see in the pitch deck as well, right? So the business model, the team, what the team experiences, right? And the market
But the
adaptability.
character, you can see the team could be very good,
Hmm.
but it's very difficult to see character. We saw that with
Absolutely.
explosive situations like Theranos, WeWork, the crypto STX or FTX or whatever it is. These are three crystal clear examples wherein it was difficult to examine issues of character. Did that come through on audio?
Can you hear me, Roger?
Yes. So I think our audio was out, but my point is that we've had some interesting situations lately with cryptocurrency, with biotech testing, with office rental, where I think people wished they could have seen into the characters of the entrepreneurs. And that would be magical if we could understand character before investing the first dollar.
So your career has undoubtedly taken you to different places around the world. Are there any unique culture experiences or perspectives you have gained from these international experiences?
The place that impacted me the most were the Scandinavian countries. The multi-generational approach, the patience and precision was awe-inspiring. Good Scandinavian entrepreneurs start their journey as an entrepreneur knowing it will take decades to achieve their business goals. Great organizations like Lidl in Germany, IKEA out of Sweden. I mean, these are long, patient processes. And I admire that. So effectively, from Central Europe, the German-speaking Europe, north to Scandinavia, I admire the patience and the precision with which they pursue their business objectives. No one expects anything to happen tomorrow. And if it does, they're very suspicious if it unfolds in success in a very short amount of time. So that is a huge impact on me, is to think in a multi-generational mindset and think beyond the horizon of the next fiscal quarter, which is a very different way of thinking about a business in terms of what will it do in the next 90 days and making decisions that affect the fate of the enterprise based on the pressures of the next 90 days.
Good. So has your background in technology and telecom influenced your investment decision strategy, particularly in the context of emerging technologies? Can you tell me about this information as well?
When it comes to emerging technologies, I think that telecom people tend to think like insurance people. There's a large capital deployment. There are enormous regulatory barriers. And then once you're in business, there's a steady return on that investment. And I think that's the similarity, is that I tend to like models where there is a capital deployment, there is a regulatory hurdle, and once you deploy the capital with expert knowledge of the category, once you surpass the regulatory hurdle, then you have a license to do business with people over and over and over again. Insurance hasn't quite caught on in Asia the way it has in North America and Northern Europe, but it has that attribute. It takes a lot to set up an insurance company, but then once you get past those regulatory hurdles, well, then it's a product that everyone needs to buy, and they're choosing amongst options, but they have to make a choice. You can't drive the car without car insurance, kind of thing. I think that in Asia, water will be that opportunity. Very quickly, many Southeast Asian countries will put in regulations that determine who can offer water. Once that happens, well, then the people in Asia will have a choice. I can get my water in these ways, but I must get my water. I can't live without water. So it's a product that I have to use every day. I need some service to acquire the water, and someone is in charge of deciding which choices I have in front of me. I think it's the first time that we will see Asia exert itself in a regulatory standpoint in a way that's beyond anything Europe and America can imagine, is water.
So, has your background in technology and telecom? I already discussed it with you, right? So, my next question is that you mentioned using software, data science, and artificial intelligence to predict human behavior with extraordinary accuracy at scale. I think so. We already have discussed in our last podcast with you, Roger, that you will utilize the AI and the machine to analyze the data for the water consumption and water utilization. So could you provide an example of a project where you applied these technologies and achieved significant results, such as water? So how much the uh, progress so far about this project as well? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. Most successful companies in this arena have been focused on media, predicting what entertainment or what information Sadaf would like to see and delivering it to her before she knows that she wants it. That's Google and all of the other digital media companies. I think the
Right now they are doing.
great leap forward would be for me to examine the eyes of 1 million children in school and predict what kinds of eyewear and or ophthalmological treatments they might need. That would be something. If you could see forward, you could see into the future and understand what kind of eye care would be optimal for each individual human being. That's amazing. That's magical. Yeah, I want to know what movies you might like before you see them. True. But I think the benefit of mankind, the positive potential outcome of artificial intelligence will be the ability to predict human need in a way that benefits humans before humans know they have that need. Just imagine the leaps forward in dental care. If I could know which child would need which corrective brace so that the problem never gets so bad that it requires surgery to begin with. So I'd love to eradicate disease, illness, psychological dysfunction. What if we could get to every psychologically disturbed person before their psychological disturbance reaches a point of violence? I love these kinds of things. Part of the reason why I'm fascinated with where artificial intelligence and data science could go in predicting human behavior. I'm so fascinated because I don't have a biological sciences background, but I admire the people who have tried to use wetware, in other words, their own minds, to do what I'm thinking AI could do much more effectively and much more efficiently.
Absolutely, indeed. So how do you stay updated on industry trends and market dynamics to make informed investment decisions across various sectors? So what is the main key tools you are using to keep you updated market trends?
I think the first challenge is the elimination of self-confidence. I have a crisis of confidence in my understanding of biological sciences, and that crisis of confidence that I don't believe that my own raw intelligence can grasp every concept leads me to experts in that field. That's a very, very important thing. I've seen other investors who are gifted synaptically. They clearly possess a genius IQ, but they underestimate the cumulative knowledge and learning that comes from pursuing a specific course of action over decades. And that's the way expertise happens. It happens from decades and decades and decades of experience in an arena that raw intelligence can't quite grasp. So, first, I admit to myself, okay, I'm interested in this area and I know nothing about it. I conquer my own confidence, and that allows me to reach out to experts who really have spent decades in that area. The second thing that I think is very, very important is a level of objectivity. When you're looking at industry trends, market dynamics, potential opportunities, it's always important to have a grounding in the numbers. If you're a pure scientist in a lab, good for you. If you're a pure practitioner in the marketplace, good for you. If you're a business person, you have to look at what is my total available market? What is my served available market? What will it take to address that served available market? Are there competitors? Are there limitations? Are there regulatory hurdles? It's important to look at the numbers. Is this business going to perform the way I think it's going to perform? You know, one of the things I kind of go back to this issue of food because I don't know the food industry. But food, when I talked about Yum Brands, when I talk about an entrepreneur, it's the great equalizer. Nothing speaks louder than the numbers in the food industry. If your business is run well, people consume it, buy it and consume it. If your business is not run well, people don't buy it and don't consume it. There's no substitute. There's no replacement here. You know, that's what makes McDonald's McDonald's. That's what makes a startup food company a startup food company. Is that you can't hide from the numbers. How many people want that item, buy that item, convert that want into purchase, convert that purchase into consumption? No replacement for that. So my biggest tool is accounting, but you know, accounting is a tool. You know, that's what it is. So that's the simplest questions are the most tricky, and that's a tricky question. How do I stay up on trends? Through experts. How do I assess whether the trend is relevant? Numbers. You know, it's not, I don't really have a very good answer there. I don't have a very mystical answer or insightful answer there. It's a pretty plain spoken answer.
So again, wrap it up. My answer is that for this question is that TAM, SAM market addressable, total addressable market, services addressable market, and services obtainable market analysis is very important. So we need to know what problem you are solving this in the society and how much the people are having that kind of problem. So we need to see the TAM, SAM for the validations. We call it market validation, Roger. So market trends and market dynamics easily can be accessible through the TAM, SAM. And again, I'm a number cruncher. So I believe in numbers. So we do the very detailed market research through the data validation and give the detailed TAM, SAM analysis. So the investors or the startups can validate their and valuation their company. So come to my final question. So what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs and start investors looking to make an impact in the tech and innovation sector? So what will you give them advice as an investor, Roger?
I think that connects back to your last statement. When I say you have to solve a problem, pursue an opportunity, or make something magical just work at all technologically. The middle one is the one where you have to take greatest care because it doesn't reveal itself in the numbers. No business case analysis, no accounting could ever articulate that there's an opportunity there. Someone could do the numbers, the business case looks great. But for an entrepreneur, sometimes you have to see that there's an opportunity there. No consumer will articulate that they need that product. No business will articulate that they need that product. So you can't demonstrate that there's demand. But your analysis proves if I created that, then people would want it. Businesses would want it. If I created it, then they will want it. And so I would advise aspiring entrepreneurs specifically to never abandon a deep thought process on what is the opportunity. Maybe there is no problem that exists today. Maybe I'm not trying to do something that's unique in its technological or scientific innovation. Maybe I'm just pursuing an opportunity to make businesses or people want something they didn't even know they needed.
Absolutely right. It happens. Usually it happens. People don't know what they need. But when the things, the product will be in the market like Zoom, people know that we will have the COVID-19, and then afterwards 2.5 years, everything will be removed. So now we don't know that we need a cloud meeting room. Now we have like a Zoom. So it's mean that at that time, at the passage of time, we actually know, oh, okay, it is now we have the requirement and we have the product as well. So at the time, people don't know about it, and now the passage of time, the requirement is there, and the product is also there. So
Yeah, we
this is
didn't
the
even know
thing.
we need it. And
Yeah.
that's the magic of opportunity, is
Yes.
seeing that, if you go too far in your analysis, you're going to miss opportunity. You might create a great company that
Hmm.
solves a problem. You might create a great company that's based on a new process, like Carnegie's new process for making steel. He made it work. He mixed other chemicals into the iron ore and made modern steel. And the whole world exists because of Andrew Carnegie's steel scientific experiment in making a certain kind of steel work. But all of that is fundamentally different from seeing that if you gave something to a business, if I give it to them, they couldn't live without it once I give it to them. And so that's my advice to entrepreneurs. Investors, completely different. We talked a little bit about that. So your question is a very strong question, but there are two different answers, because the advice I would give to an aspiring entrepreneur is fundamentally different from the advice I would give to an aspiring investor, in early stage or mature companies. For investors, the advice I would give them, the most important thing a large cap investor can do is read history, not business books, not, pure business text. The smartest thing that you can do when you invest in large companies is to read history and read about the history of the world, and then translate that into trends you see today. It's interesting. One of the companies I admire the most in the world is JAB Holdings. Few people have ever heard of this company, but JAB Holdings is run by a very gifted intellectual, Peter Harf, disguised as a businessman. And the way the company matures, evolves, exploits opportunity, sheds and acquires assets, they do it with a sense of the broader context of the world, and they do that very well. For the same company to dominate suntan lotion, that owns Bally, the luxury goods company, that also owns a company like Krispy Kreme or Dr. Pepper 7-Up. They're thinking on the broadest level, from a historical, arts and sciences, world history level. They're thinking in centuries, even though the existing leaders of the business may not be around a century from now, but they're thinking in centuries. You can only do that if you're broadly read and culturally astute. So for investors in large cap companies, completely different advice than an entrepreneur trying to hit two rocks together and make a spark fly.
Yeah.
Very, very different here. And maybe in the future we'll have a fun conversation about how to look at those macroeconomic trends that large companies need to look for versus the real world of how a small business survives for the next 6 weeks. These are different problems to solve.
Different, absolutely different problems, because in terms of the number, I say that multinational companies have the huge cash burn and they have the huge reserve. They don't need to figure it out. Okay, what is their monthly payroll? But small startups company, they have a very shortfall of cash burn. They need an investment. They need a instant investment to do their progress so far. So the problem of the multinational companies and the startups totally different, and of course the advice is also will be different for both of them. And thank you at all, Roger. Thank you for the meeting, and I hope this podcast will help a lot the investors and the startups as well who are seeking investment. Do you want to add anything, Roger?
Sadaf, as usual, it was great speaking to you. Great
Thank you.
speaking to your audience. I know these are not very technical interviews, but over time, I'm happy to go more deeply into the technical aspects of investment decisions. And good luck to you and your audience.
And I would like to discuss the specific pitch deck content with you in the next podcast. So we will discuss because we have the list of pitch decks regularly we are reviewing. But in terms of as an investor, we will share the template of the pitch decks with you, and you will share your insights. So how you are specifically analyzing these pitch deck as per your perspective. Okay, Roger. So we will discuss this technical information in the next podcast. Thank you, audience. Thank you so much. Take care.